We can talk. Oh, we are live
We are
streaming.
live. So what do we want to start with, Carol?
How about we start with pricing? Hello,
Oh,
everyone. Welcome to the roundup.
welcome to Roundup. It's you've got the dynamic duo this morning.
We can talk. Oh,
I was to say I got to copy the link. Is Nina is in the air
yep,
traveling somewhere,
yep.
and
Someplace
Josh is
fabulous, it sounds.
yeah, and Josh is in the wilds of Canada with his wife and kids, and still thinking he's 19 and did some crazy shit the other day and ended up with some injuries that he's like recovering from right now. So yeah, he still thinks he's 19 and can get out there and do all kinds of crazy stuff and not get hurt and also bounce back quick. Anyway,
Don't we
so
all? We're
we all
yogis. We stay young, you know.
say yeah, exactly. All right, I got that all set up. So earlier this week, I received a message from one of my clients about should she raise her prices. She had a price adjustment. I never like to say price increase. I always like to say price. We like to say optimize your pricing, price adjustments. She took a price adjustment just this year in the fall. Excuse me, in January. Hadn't done one in a while, so it was a bit of a significant jump. And then it was had got a little pushback from some clients because took the price adjustment, membership prices went up, and then it was January and February, and classes were full and busy with wait lists, and some of the members weren't, I can't get in the class, all of that kind of stuff. Of course, that did die down, and everything was fine. And so what she messaged me is she said, she's looking at taking just basically whatever the CPP index, whatever that index is, the cost of living index, just bringing it up to stay in line with just pricing going up, or given the fact that, the studio is doing really well. It's back on, finally fully recovered from the pandemic, and it's just two locations, is doing really, really well. And it's like, do I really need to do it? And my answer, I said, yes, adjust your prices. Because when we get into a regular cadence of adjusting prices a small amount, then we don't have, if we haven't done it in years, then all of a sudden, like, holy smokes, we need to go from $99 a month to $149 a month. Or you have people that have been paying $79 a month because you got them grandfathered in, and now you need to bring them on par, kind of thing. So the thing about having a regular price adjustment or price increase on an annual basis is that it becomes a non-conversation. You just do it. And it's a reasonable amount. It's not breaking the bank. You're not raising it up like 20, 30, $40 in some cases. If you haven't, I had a client last year, had not raised her membership prices since 2017.
Yeah.
It's
It
just
does
like,
become a big slap in the face for everybody whenever you wait too long.
you wait too long, right? And you're essentially leaving money on the table
Yeah.
because let's face it, it's more expensive to do business
Yeah.
every year. So, and keeping in mind too that, and then the other thing is, if you do it on a regular and consistent basis, then it doesn't become this whole big arduous task. As do I need to notify people? The other thing you can even do, I had a client that actually had it in their agreement that the price would adjust by X amount every time it renewed annually.
Hmm.
It was in their membership agreement.
Hmm.
That it would just automatically, when it hit the 12-month mark, it would automatically raise to, and I forgot they had the price built in, it was in the membership agreement, how much it would go up. So nice thing about that is then the clients didn't even have to sign a new membership agreement because it's built right into the membership agreement, right? So when you're taking smaller raises more frequently, it becomes the norm. I'm like, we seem to be like the only industry that doesn't raise our prices.
Yeah.
What's your take on that, Carol?
Well, I agree with everything you're saying and see validity in all of it. And we were talking a little bit before, like, is there any instance where you would want to lower your your membership price? Like this is also a conversation that's come up for me this week in coaching. I have a newer studio and we're doing they've been open a little over a year and we're doing, we want to strategically price everything, right? And so that's one of the first things we do is sort of audit what they have. And was sort of like, we want to have a good enough amount of difference between price per class in each, like, for each avatar of practice frequency to make it work. And it was kind of like, is there a time when maybe the membership's set a little too high? Do we need to adjust it down? You know, and what
Yeah.
it just brought up some questions. And you and I were talking before, and I thought you had some really great things to say about it. It's about looking at how many people are in your room or how many people do you have on membership. Maybe it isn't priced right, maybe it's a little too high. You had a great example of somebody that like lowered their prices drastically once they took over. That was
I
really
have a
interesting.
friend, and one of my friends and mentors, she bought a studio. This is probably about 10 years ago, but and didn't have a ton of people on membership and was like at maybe 35% capacity on average. Its studio had been around for a while, but was like poorly at Tempo Gloss. So she revamped it. She dropped her membership price significantly. And the way they handled it was they just started charging, the new people coming in. And then for the existing members, they were like, if you want to take advantage, just let us, they put it on, they didn't do it automatically. They were very transparent about their new pricing. They weren't trying to hide that they had lowered their membership price, but they didn't proactively just go in and take however many members they have and just drop their price. What they said was, if you'd like to take advantage, if you'd like to change, if you'd like this new membership price, let us know at the front desk. So that the onus was on the member to go up to the front desk to ask them to change their membership price. And she said, yeah, probably about a little more than half the people did, but she said a little less than half the people didn't. They didn't change that. Either they didn't know, they didn't, it was like, maybe they had the means, the resources, it wasn't their membership at where it was fine. Maybe they never heard the announcement, who knows? But, we've talked about this a number of times, is when can you raise your risk? Like if you're struggling to get people in the room, maybe lowering them to help fill the room up, to create that energy. Because we all know that going to a studio and there's like, let's say the room holds 25 people and routinely there's only 8 or 9 people. It's like the energy just is not so great. And then we all love it, right, Carol? It's like when the vibe is there, everybody's there and grooving and doing their thing. It's like so palpable. It's so amazing.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've all had those classes, those really big full classes where, I don't know about you, but there's like a moment when it seems like everybody clicks.
Mm-hmm.
There's like this
The energy. Yeah.
that you go through the room, and really, I think people are drafting off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter the level of experience, the level of practice, how pretty, it's just, there's this energy that takes over. And all of a sudden it's like you're moving seriously, like as one entity. I've had it happen only a handful of times in my teaching career, but it is amazing when it happens. Have you experienced that, Carol? I can see.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I use this in some of my classes sometimes. It's like, the energy you give off or that you're going to get from somebody is it. I said, and though it sounds woo-woo, but there is something about a person's energy. And there are, when the whole room is vibing like that, it's really, really cool. And I had a few people that were, I would say, you might be sitting next to somebody that has great energy, you're just drawn to them. And then you also, it's like, you might think I'm full of shit, except you're going to be sitting next to somebody one day who doesn't have that kind of energy is like drawing you
We
down, you
call them,
know?
I
And
think we call them energy vampires.
yes. And so, and I had people come out and they're like, you're so right, you know, it does happen. So when the whole room like that, it's so cool. And, but you have to have enough people,
People
you
in the
know, you need
room
the
to
people,
get
right?
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to if you're struggling to get the room full and it's like you have lots of space, lowering your prices can be a strategy.
Mhm.
And then once you get to, we like to say the rule of thumb is like 70% full, 70% of the time. And that's when you can start, even when you hit that, you can start moving some of the pricing. And then also, we also say when you hit 70% of the time, that could be like, you're fine, you're happy, you're golden with that. Or it's like, that's the time to decide, okay, do I want to stay as is, which is perfectly fine. Some people just get to the point and it's like, I'm good. I'm good with what the studio is doing. It's running, it's grooving, it's moving, it's low. All the systems are in place and I'm happy with what's happening. That is absolutely 100% fine. Or, maybe it's time to expand. Maybe it's time to get a second location. Like I had a client was like, she had 2 locations already and someone approached her on the other side of town. There had been, I don't know, some type of martial arts studio or something, but it was a fitness space, which is, we know if you're building out a space, it's like if you can go into a space that's already been built out as a fitness space, then your build out is way less costly. And wanted to go in and open, you know, and we talked about it at length on one of our coaching calls. And we look at like, well, look, your 2 studios you have right now are still not even at this level. And why would you want to take on another location with a business partner as well? And because as a business partner running it as a separate entity under the same name, I said, and then she thought about it, she said, oh yeah, no, you're right. That's probably, I said, why don't the time to look at another location is when these other 2 locations are thriving. Yeah. Not when you're still trying to get back post-COVID kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I forgot where I was going with this, but yeah, so that's sort of the general rule of thumb.
Well, I mean, pricing is sort of, and whether it goes up or down is supply and demand. Economics 101. Like, do you have a lot of demand? Well, you can raise those prices.
Yes.
You know? Do you have too much supply? Like, you know, is your room not full? You need to, so it's just, you got to know some business rules and think that through. And
yeah, pricing is part art and part science. And then you mentioned before the call that this client, if you take their membership at 2 times a week and price it out, it worked out to be like $18.12. I think we did the math. Well, their 10-pack is $175. So that means $17.50 a class for a 10-pack. No wonder they don't have so many members.
Yeah.
Actually, we looked at their numbers, they would have a ton of 10-packs.
10 class. Yeah.
You never want your 10-pack. You always want
compete.
your membership to be priced at 2 times a week and nothing else competes with it. Otherwise, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. So kind of going back full circle to when is it time to raise prices? Or should I raise prices? If like in the studio's case, things are good, things are humming, yes, take those price increases. You know, just those small adjustments, because then you're staying apace of what's happening in the markets. And then you don't like 5 years from now, like, oh my gosh, now I got to take a 20% increase because I haven't kept up with the other prices. And all too often we get in a position of fear. It's like, okay, I don't want to raise the price on my existing members. So I'll just have any new member come in at this newer price. And then now it's like, I just went through this with a client in the last year where they had people on 5 different, they had some people seriously in a major metro market paying like only $89 a month. And their regular monthly membership was $149.
Yeah.
So
it gets hard. Like, rip the Band-Aid off early so you don't have that down the road.
Yeah, you don't have that. And if you've really proven yourself, your value, then the goal is that the members aren't going to blink.
Yeah. Yeah.
And or you have a downsell offer,
Hmm.
right? If someone's only been coming like maybe 6 or 7 times a month and it's like, oh, it's still worth it, but now it's going up, well, then that's where you have maybe like a mini or maintenance or whatever you're going to call it, like a one time a week.
Mm.
And here's another interesting strategy too, that for those that are at the point where they're kind of hitting that capacity and the rooms are fuller and classes are, is doing like a 4 times a month, 8 times a month. This is like the Orange Theory and a lot of gems. You have a 4 times a month and 8 times a month, and the unlimited is actually, unless you're practicing more than 3 or 4 times a week, is more expensive. So you really have, you have a premium.
Premium. Hmm.
A premium, like I did that when I was at a place a couple of years ago, and I did the math, and it was, I had to go at least 3 times a week to make, and even then it was just a little bit more, a little bit less than what their 8 times a month package was. So realistically, it was like 4 times a week is where I was really like significantly less.
Hmm.
And I, and it was a spin studio, so they had their capacity was their capacity. So I thought that was a really interesting strategy. It's like, okay, you want an unlimited membership, then that means you're coming a lot. So you're going to, if you come less than that, you're going to pay a little bit more of a premium. So that's
Well, and
why,
I could also see that being like you get first dibs to like somehow the sign up is even more open for that level of membership too. That could
yeah.
really draw some, like if somebody wants to be last minute, but they only come 6 times a month, like they almost would go even to that premium just to have the option to like have an open bike, in that
Well,
scenario.
speaking of, they just made me think of, I was on a call for Mindbody a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know when they're going to roll it out, but Mindbody is about to roll out a new feature where you can set up different booking windows based on membership type.
Nice.
So like if you had like
Yeah.
a premium membership, you could set it up where, okay, if I'm an unlimited member, then I can book out 3 or whatever, say a month ahead. If you're not, then you can only book out 2 weeks or 2 weeks versus a week kind of thing, based upon membership type, which you actually can kind of sort of do right now in Mindbody if you set up a different service category.
Yeah.
You could set up a different service category, which no, it doesn't give the booking window. What that does is it can restrict a class to members only. Anyway, I don't want to go too far down the weeds on that. So yes, get your pricing strategy dialed in,
Right.
then have those annual adjustments, or maybe it's every 18 months. And this client, I said, take the adjustment, and rather perhaps taking it in January, take it a little bit later in the year.
Yeah.
And she said, well, that's interesting you say that. We used to do it like in the summer, and then I said, yeah, just make it like in the spring or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you don't do it every 12, maybe you do it every 14 months or every 18 months. It does, it's just, the thing is, it should be ideally a regular cadence.
Yeah.
And ideally also we optimize for the pricing difference is at least, we say 3 to 5, now I'm saying like 4 to 6 between your that's why you want to peg your drop-in high.
Make the drop in feel scary to you.
Oh, I like
You're
yeah.
thinking they would never pay this, and that's probably about right.
Yeah. I like that. Make it scary. Every time I tell a client to raise their drop-in, they get all freaked out, and they
I know.
do. And
I know. And then they do it, and guess what happens? Nobody says a thing.
yeah,
It's not even an
maybe
issue.
you have a client or two. I did have a client that took hers up, and then a couple of people called and complained because they only ever bought drop-ins. And I said, well, tell them to buy a 10-pack.
10 class card. That's right. Right.
Because in my opinion, a 10-pack is basically just a discount on drop-ins.
Mm-hmm. I also like, I remember somebody coming in and saying, oh, these cost this, because we live in St. Louis, and she's like, oh, these drop-in rates are like New York City. And I just said, yeah, they are. I just had to stand firm in it. Like,
Yeah.
we're in a premium shopping center, we pay high rent. And I just, when I knew it was right, I just agreed with her and we went on her way and she paid her full amount. So
Yeah.
it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Here's the thing, if they don't want to pay it, they're not going to
They
pay it.
don't have to pay it.
They don't have to pay
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
If they want to take a yoga class, they're going to pay it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was an out of towner. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing too. Like, if I'm from out of town and I go to Miami or someplace like that, I know I'm going to pay a premium
Yeah.
for a drop in and
If
I'm going
I'm
to
out
get
of
the
town,
mat, I'm going to get the whole works,
yeah.
and I don't think about it.
Yeah, it's just like if I want to take a fitness class, yoga class, whatever it is, I just like I don't even think it's like whatever they
Hmm.
charge, they charge. I'm not going to say, oh,
Hmm.
that's really expensive.
Hmm.
It's like if I want to do it, then I'm going to. And besides, when you travel, money doesn't count anyway. When you're on
It's
vacation,
just fun money or
it's just fun money.
so.
Yeah. Besides, is your health is it your health worth it, Paige?
I always feel better when I work out when I'm on vacation. So,
Yeah. Um, so yeah, so take those price adjustments. If you haven't in a while, and you don't have a coach, we can help you walk through how do you do it? How do you notify people? What do you have to do? We have a whole process for how to do that. And I can tell you right now, you can raise your drop-in right now. You don't have to tell anybody about raising you don't even have to tell anybody. Really, the only people you need to talk to about if you're changing prices is people on your membership. I mean, you don't even
mhm.
have to tell the 10-pack people. I used to make this big thing, and then I finally when I raised the 10-pack, I just raised the 10-pack.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And so I raised my drop in. I bought my studio at 15. By the time I sold it, within 5 years, it was 30. And I would have raised it to 35 if I had kept it. And you're in St. Louis right now. You're at 33,
I
right?
think we're at 33. Yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
have clients in California that are 40 and 45. I
yeah.
granted those are major markets, and still people pay it. That's the
Yeah.
thing. People
I
pay it.
know.
So interesting. So Carol, you had a really interesting dinner with a friend.
Dinner. Yeah. With a friend last night. It's not, you know, it's yoga related, just in the sense of like, I don't
Well,
know,
everything in life is yoga.
that's true. Everything is in life is yoga. So yeah, I had dinner with a friend and she's been in education for 27 years. And she was like, I wanted to talk to you because I know you sold the studio a couple years ago. And she's like, I'm feeling really burnt out and like it's time for a change. And she just wanted to find out, what was my thought process and the reason, like, when did I know it was time to change, for a change? Um, and then we got into a lot of like how your identity, she's like, I know I am not my job, but
But
there, and, I
asterisk,
feel,
as Josh would
and,
say,
right,
asterisk.
asterisks, like, there's a lot of who I feel like I am tied
Right.
up in this. That's something I've done for nearly 3 decades,
Yeah,
and how
it
does
is
that,
part of your identity.
yeah, yeah. And so we got to talking about that, and I thought how interesting, because I know we've spoken before a lot about people getting into, owning a studio, and only a couple times I think talking about when it's time to leave.
Yeah.
Like, how did we know it was
How
time,
did
and
we
what?
know this time? Yeah.
Yeah. And I told her, one of the things I wasn't able to articulate it when I first was in that situation, but only in the last couple of weeks I realized, when things are you're in flow and it's fun, even the hard things are like exciting because you
Yeah.
think, how am I going to tackle this challenge? And you're coming from a place of excitement. And I told her what I realized is I was no longer in that state. It was like I was a raw nerve. And every time, my business partners, it was like zing every time, like the phone would ring, I could just feel it in my body. And I was no longer having fun. And I realized that was sort of like what struck me as now I'm looking for like doing new things and just trusting the universe to put me in situations. It's like, okay, I don't really know how to do this, but it's fun and I want to try to figure it out. And So that was sort of my explanation as to how I knew it was time to start down the path of selling the studio. And
Interesting. Was your business partner kind of at that same point? Because you had a
yeah,
business partner, so it's not like,
yeah,
well, I guess
yeah,
if she didn't want to sell, you could have maybe sold out to her, which does happen
it
sometimes. But was
does. Yeah.
she in a similar situation, a feeling, place of being and feeling? Because you guys started it both young. You were like only in your 20s, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we were in our mid 20s at the time when we opened, which that's so crazy to me right now. To think back, like, what the hell? 25 years old opening a business. So yeah, and her kids, I think it was had to do a lot of with her children too. Like she's like, I only have a few more years before my first one goes off to college, and I want to be at every volleyball game. I just want to participate in as many ways as I can while she's still here at home. And, it was the right time,
Yeah.
I think for both of us. And
Well,
yeah,
and there's ways too with that. Like you can, if that's the case with the kids and stuff, it sounds to me like you guys are just going to the point where you want it out because
yeah,
we do coach this. We have
yeah,
clients
there are
we've
people
seen
that don't
that run
participate.
their
Yeah,
business.
yeah,
Yeah, they don't
remotely.
participate in their
Hmm.
businesses anymore because they built it. We like to say they built a machine to build a machine.
Hmm.
So they really have ascended to that true like board of directors where they're
Hmm.
absolutely completely out of the day-to-day operations and they only
Yeah.
just check in every so often to get the report and they get income from the studio and they have a whole team in place that runs the business. So, there's multiple ways you can exit your studio. Obviously, the most extreme, the ultimate one is you sell it. You sell it or shut it down. That's the ultimate goal. I always ask clients is, and it's amazing how many people don't have this answer, is what's your exit strategy? That's an important part of owning a business, regardless of where you're at in the own. It's like whether you're 25 or I happen to be, and I've said this before, I was 53 when I bought my business. And I was not from Massachusetts. So for me, I never intended to keep it forever. I always intended to sell it. From day one, I knew that I was going to build this business up and sell it. I just brought that timeline forward a few years due to kind of some similar circumstances. And I've said, my story before is just like between my mom passing in 2019 and when he realized I really wanted to be closer to family, and then some things I do differently now, when I bought the business and realizing that if I wanted to take my business to the next level, I was going to have to get rid of the majority of my team to do so. And I was getting to the point where I just didn't want to go into the studio because there was some personnel issues. I'm like, oh God, that person's there and da da da. And so it was just like a culmination of things for me. It was like, okay, I'm just going to sell it early. But because I'd always known I was going to sell it, it was ready to sell pretty quickly.
Hmm.
It didn't take me 2 years to get ready to sell the business because from day one, I had the intention of one day selling it. So that's another thing, those of you, whether you've had your business for years or whether you're just starting out, to think about, we'll say start with the end game and then work backwards.
Yeah.
Because what do you want to do with your business? At some point, it's like, what is it? Do you want to get something for the business that you've worked really hard to build? Or do you just plan to walk out, close the door and walk away one day? And that's fine if that's what you want to do. And certainly people do that, but do you want to get some financial money out of it, out of all your sweat equity as well as your financial equity in it? So, that's part of it too. So if you have that plan in place, when you hit that bump in the road and it's like, to your point, Carol, it's like, when do you decide to get out? But if you
I
have
mean,
go ahead.
oh yeah, I was gonna say it, you know, if you are, whether you're planning to sell or not, if you can get it to where it's looking good to a buyer, you're probably going to be in a better spot
Yeah.
anyway, as far
Mhm.
as like into more of that leadership role,
Yeah.
more of, you're not cleaning the toilets every day because somebody's not going to buy a job. Most
Exactly.
likely, I mean, maybe they will and they're going to build it up. You never know. But when the business is, I feel like when we started to really think about that as our end goal, the business started to run a lot more smoothly because we were thinking of that, what's
Right.
going to make the business look better. And if you could do that early on
Yeah.
and then just ride that out until you're ready, or maybe there's a bump in the road, or there's something that comes up that there can be unexpected reasons why you
Yeah.
need to get out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but I just going back to the conversation too, it was like, um, you know, this applies in many other areas of life too. And having life is having fun. So if you're not having fun anymore,
Yeah. Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
switch it
Like you said,
up.
it's like your body would tense when you
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's like I was in a somewhat similar situation, and some of it was of my own doing. Hashtag Terry's dad. If there's a problem in your business, look in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And part of it was not dealing with some employee issues early on when I should have. Learned a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of what I would do differently if I ever owned another business. And I think the ultimate for me was when one of my staff, my teachers, who had been a student, and actually she was one of my like everybody was like everybody has them, the beloved student, everybody loves, right? She's always there. Oh my God, I think her average revenue per visit was like $2.50. However, she was like one of my top spenders, right? And so she became a IHP teacher. And then that's when she just would like question me on everything I did. What, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then she actually quit, gave her notice when I was in California after my mom died. I'm like,
That's really
would it
hard.
be possible for you to stay long? And she said, nope. That was a huge fuck. I realized that was a fuck you to me.
Yeah.
That was a fuck. And I realize now I take the responsibility. I should have nipped some of that shit in the bud right away. I absolutely should have nipped some of that shit in the bud. And in fact, kind of goes to clients too, because Josh posted a great video about what do you do about entitled clients? Kind of similar thing. What do you do with entitled teachers? It's sort of the similar thing. Like if you have someone on your staff that you actively want to avoid, or when they're there, your stomach goes into a knot, there's a problem, right? You have a problem
Absolutely.
in your business and you need
Yeah.
to solve it. But got it again, going back to what you said at the very beginning, we talked about, this woman who's a teacher, not her identity. And yeah, it kind of is. We do become, because we actually talk about this in with the retention path for yoga students, is there is this phenomenon that occurs when someone does something routinely for a certain amount of time, and it's about around 2 years. It does become part of your identity. So rather than going from I practice yoga to I'm a yogi, or I play golf to I'm a golfer, or I run marathons to I'm a marathoner. I'm a school teacher, it's like I teach school, I'm a school teacher. It really does become part of our identity. And I think that's the harder part, is when you stop doing it, now all of a sudden, what's my new identity? Particularly when you've been doing something for more than half your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I
I
think is
mean,
scary.
yeah, I think some of that is, tied up in like what we see as our success
Yeah.
in life is like, I do this and I
Yeah.
am this. I am a studio owner. I own a business. And that sounds really successful and like has a,
Ego.
and yeah, totally ego. And what I've tried to sort of unravel is, especially in the US, it's like a work, 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 push, 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 more, more, more. And I'm trying to reframe my success as leisure time, you know, taking classes. Like I don't know, like I'm trying to see where that is a successful life and lifestyle over working 7 days a week. Or, I didn't work 7 days a week in the studio, but you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
there's just a
No,
different,
it is. It's a total different mind. And I think that's one thing that the younger generations do have. And I
I
think
I
particularly
believe that.
like us boomers, and because I'm a late boomer, I'm still just on, I'm a boomer and you're as
Gen X.
Gen X, right? The last
Yep.
of the, and then what's after Gen X?
Millennials.
Millennials. So the millennials, like Josh and they're millennial, you're Gen X.
Mhm.
So like the millennials really are the last, those born the eight were like kind of like the last analog generation, as Josh
Mhm.
likes to say. But certainly the Gen X and the boomers, that's how we were raised. It's like
Yeah.
go. And now, because I've been reading, I really am trying to understand this younger generation. And so been reading a lot of interesting things about what they're looking for in life. And it's very much, it is a lot of it's experiential. I was reading a very interesting article about they don't want bucket lists. They don't just want to go and cross something like, oh, I've been to the Grand Canyon, shoot off the list. I've been to the Eiffel Tower. I've been to whatever. They want to immerse themselves in the experience, not so much. And we have talked about that. It's experiential, but even more so now is they want that experience as opposed to just making a list and checking it off. So, and then absolutely, sometimes I've heard this from some of my clients with their younger staff. It's like, oh, I'm sorry, this is out. It's like you're overstepping your boundaries. It's all this like boundaries and I'm just like, because I was raised that what you just did the work,
Same. Yeah.
right?
I mean, I
Yeah.
like
It's
I think the generation of like, yes, I need a mental health day. Like I need a day to like I would what are you talking about?
what
Like
are you talking
I just
about?
keep going. My dad's in the hospital. I'm gonna sit down and still work. Blah, blah, I just so I'm
I,
trying to reframe
yeah,
my
yeah.
idea of
Exactly. I'll never forget the time when I was working for my dad, like I said, as an adult. I was like, I don't know, my mid-20s, whatever it was. And I woke up one morning, I legitimately wasn't feeling well. Nowadays you wouldn't do this, but I was calling in to work sick, and my dad said, sorry, you're the third person I need you, get your ass in here. I like, now, if I
that's
wasn't his daughter, he probably would have
yeah,
said that. And nowadays, you probably actually couldn't say that. But I'm
yeah.
like, oh, okay. So of course I, loaded up on Dayquil or whatever it was. Because now I'm thinking back, oh my God, all those customers I saw and I remembered going on my lunch break back we sold office furniture, office supplies and office furniture. So I went back in the showroom where the office furniture was way back in the corner, and I laid down underneath the
Took a
desk.
little nap.
Yeah, so I love, so anyway, sort of coming back to the identity and experiences and what people are looking for. It's like, yeah, so what do you want to do with the business, and how are you still feeling about your business? And if you are to that point of being overwhelmed and you don't even want to go into the business, then that's when you need to kind of take a pause and figure out, what is it that I want? Because you're not doing yourself, in my opinion, you're not doing yourself a favor, and you're not doing your business a favor. Because it's kind of like, I think, you can tell me if you think this or not. I mean, if you agree or not, I kind of think it's like the family goes how mom and dad are doing, right?
Mm,
If mom and dad are good, and even if if mom and dad are good and if the kids feel solid, then I think, kind of the same thing with a business is like, if there's like anything or with the owner, I think it kind of does then get reflected down. If there's anxiety or stress or anything, I think that does get pushed down to your staff as well. So if you are at that place, then what are you going to do about it? And
yeah,
sticking your head in the sand, which a lot of people will do, and I was guilty of this for a while, isn't going to help.
right. 100%.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, it's, at the end of the day, we are all flawed human beings. We all bring our own garbage and shit into everything we do, even in the yoga world, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We hear horror stories about stuff, and it's like, just because we do yoga doesn't mean we don't.
We're all a work in progress
All
and
works
just
in
trying to
progress.
be.
So yeah, so if, again, what can you do if you're at that point? I mean, what do you do if you're at that point? That's when you get help.
I was about to say that's when we got a coach and really helped us direct our focus where our energy would best be used to improve things. And because it felt so scattered when we were, it's like, do I do this? Do I do that? Like you're halfway doing a million different things. And when you can focus in on doing like this one thing, really laser beam in, get that and see it all the way through to the end. Okay, that's in place. Let's do the next thing. Yeah.
Here's what
So,
we talk about when we've done some of we call it our SOS boot camp, is as an exercise as the owner. And I just had that call with a client yesterday, and she's going to start working on this. We say, because I heard a lot, well, I can't, I still need to do this. They're doing all these other tasky things, still way down in the weeds. Or I even challenged one of my clients this week. It's like, why are the teachers calling you still for this? Because she has people in place, right? Or another one was, she's still, why are you still doing this? Right? It's like, because sometimes it's like we're afraid to give up a little bit of control, or maybe is it a trust issue? I don't know. That's where you have, as the owner, have to take stock. And yeah, there's certain things only the owner can do, and maybe not.
yeah.
If you have the right people in place, like owners who really are completely out of their studios and are just at that really, like you said, that board of directors level, have nothing to do with the day-to-day operations because they have their team in place. I mean, yes, they have the pulse on the business, but they don't know what Tom, Dick, and Sally are doing over here in terms of memberships or whatever, Chaya and whoever's doing over here, all that kind of stuff. Is try this as a little homework. For 2 weeks, write down everything you do as an owner, everything with your business. Whatever it is, you can do it on your phone. Heck, you can do an old-fashioned notebook, right? But write it down. Everything you find yourself doing, doesn't matter, for like 2 weeks. Then look at the list and figure out, how much do you get paid an hour? Hopefully you're paying yourself. Or how much would you like to get paid? Like if you could make the money in your studio what you really would like to pay yourself, how much are you willing to pay someone to do that task? When you think about it, let's say you calculate your salary at $75 an hour. Okay, is this task I'm doing worth $75 an hour? Probably not. What if could I pay somebody $25 an hour to do this? Now all of a sudden, I have, holy shit, I in the last 2 weeks, I spent 4 hours on this one thing. If you had 4 hours in your day or 4 hours in a week back, what could you be doing? Like to Carol's point, you could be doing something for yourself. You could be working on something long-term for your studio. You could be working on a passion project, like an organization you work with. You could be out, I know I won't go there. You know where I was going to go with that. You could be out doing all kinds of other things. If that's, so that I challenge you, if you haven't done that, it's a really, really interesting exercise. All the things you do to find out. And then maybe you find, I know I was guilty of this, doing shit that I really shouldn't do because I didn't want to do the thing I really needed to do.
Yep.
That,
that's a common thing we see, and we've done, all of us, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, I have to build this playlist for my class today, which I never did because I hated building playlists. I bought it's called Fit Radio.
Hmm.
And I think they're still, but I don't know if they offer this, but after I went through my IHP training, Gabby Walters, who's the founder of Infernal Hot Pilates, suggested it. She said, you can buy a lifetime subscription for $79. And I bought it in
Perfect.
2018. So anyway, so Fit Radio has playlists that are like, 80s things, this, and they're like steady beat, whatever. So I was putting together a good playlist is tough. Carol's good at it. But anyway, I know you like playlists. So, okay. Oh, I've got to build this playlist tonight because you don't want to deal with, I really need to have this conversation with this staff person about their behavior or about something in the class or about
Hmm.
this, right?
Hmm.
So
Sweeping it under the rug doesn't make it go away. Just builds this pile.
before you know it,
You got to step over it and jump over it eventually.
step over it. Yeah, yeah. So that's a really good exercise is to just write down everything you do and then see, and right now, if you're fairly new in the business, I mean, fairly new into your studio ownership, this is still a good thing to do because this is the thing that if you're listening to this and you're like, well, shit, it's just me and a couple of teachers. Hey, been there, done that. You can still start figuring out what your organization is going to look like as your business grows. Right? We call it defining the seats in your organization, your like the beginnings of your accountability chart. And we like it say that instead of org chart, right? So right now it's like, yeah, you're wearing 10 hats, but eventually you're going to have someone do this and someone do this and someone do this. So it's not, even if you're saying, oh my gosh, this is, I can't even imagine this. Actually, it's a good time to do it.
Yeah. I mean, early on, I think it would have been easier to just start the process instead of like getting 10 years down the road and being like, what? There's so many different things to think about. But
I think it really, and I think also too, if you're in the beginning and you have a partner, I think it's almost even more imperative because I saw this at an account where it was two owners and they said they always were constantly crossing each other in terms of what, oh, I thought it was like, well, you're supposed to take care of that. And then this like, no, I'm doing this. Well, I thought it was like, was it, even though they said that what they were supposed to be doing, they constantly were crossing over and messing.
yeah.
So I think if you have a business partner, even if you're in the early stages of studio ownership, I think it's even behooves you even more to really define what each partner is responsible for.
Yeah.
I like to talk about what is it that they're responsible for. And here's a good one is what are the KPIs that to determine the success of that role? So it's just beyond, oh, I'm responsible for social media. Okay. What are the KPIs that determine the success if you're in that role? What could some of those be, Carol?
Well, engagement, new followers, number of clicks on like if you run a story, like are you getting any people actually clicking on it to come in for your intro offer? Lots
Yeah,
of different ones.
yeah.
So, but
So you
yeah.
you can come up. I use social media because there's not a easy to say, oh, that's first visits or something. But you're right. It's all
Mhm.
that stuff. Is if you're responsible for the website.
Mhm.
Okay, what are some KPIs for a website?
Ooh, well, visits to the website because you can track that via Google. You can look at purchases from the website of your intro offer. That would be a really good one.
You could also, the reason I asked this because we just did this with a client this week who's on our ads beta, and I was like all the Google Analytics. You can see
Yeah.
what's the organic traffic versus what's the
Hmm.
paid traffic. You
Hmm.
can see that because that's if you the paid traffic, we're like didn't think the ads we were running were working, and it turns out, yeah, they are. What's not happening is they're getting there, but they're not buying the thing.
Mm.
So now we're like, okay, what can we do to get them to buy the thing?
Mhm.
We need to change what that is. But yeah, so you can look at engagement on the website. What page is the most frequented page? What was interesting in this case, it was like a ton of people go to the schedule page, which means more than likely that's existing. But well, why aren't they using their app?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So those are
Interesting.
the reason I've selected those two, social media and website, because oftentimes we're like, oh, well, how do we gauge? Well, there are KPIs for anything beyond obviously your obvious ones, like sales, retention, conversion, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, those are the type of things that when we talk about going into looking at your organization, is that we look for is like, what's the role? What are the KPIs that support the role? And what are the three primary things they're responsible for? Yeah. So, and kind of coming back to what you said is, when is the time to sell? Doesn't matter when the time to sell is. The thing is, are these things in place? Because if these things are in place when you decide to sell, you are in such a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And or helps you if you're like, okay, I just want to take it to here and then run it. Great.
Yeah. Not much more to say about that.
The only final thing I will say about that is, who do you sell to? And I can tell you, one of our favorite broker, Mitch McGinley, who sold my studio, who sold your studio, who sold a bunch of people's studio, will tell you, particularly in the yoga world, something I forget what it is, but the 9 times out of 10, it's somebody within your community that will buy your studio. So you could start looking around at your team right now, or in my case, it was a member who bought it. The first time it was a teacher. The second time it was after that sale fell through because of this thing called COVID. The second time was a student member. But is there someone in your organization you could nurture? Could be part of your succession.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the other part of leadership, is looking for those people that you can bring up.
Yeah. And it might be like 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
You might, I mean, I feel like there's a studio owner that you and I both know, and she brought on a desk person who's now turned into, like, she's teaching, and it's just like, I know the studio owner is basically like, I could see this person 10, 15 years from now just buying the studio. And we don't know if that's the case, but if she recognizes it early and wants to nurture that, I think it's a really great thing to do.
It is a great, and even if that person doesn't end up, just think, when we think about being of service, you know, if we give skills to and help people grow into their potential, and even if they don't use it for us eventually, think about that person going out in the world. And now that person, that young person, has, under your mentorship and leadership, has a ton of awesome skills that is going to help them in whatever the next chapter of their life is.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they leave the area and decide to open a business studio, you know, in some other area. Right. So yeah, it's like, because sometimes like, oh, I don't want to invest all this time and energy. Well, here's the thing. If you invest the time and energy and they end up not staying, now you have experience doing that. And then when someone else comes on, you already have that experience on how to do it.
And your influence is now in somebody else's, life. And if they open a studio somewhere else, that's like, I don't know, I'd feel like the grandmommy of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, that's a real compliment. I mean, as long as they don't open it across the street.
Exactly. Yeah.
Although there's been instances where teachers and stuff have left and it has had like zero impact on the owner. But I would say that's not the case where you have a really strong, I think in the case we're describing, and then particularly this person we're both mentioning, is there's no way she would like open a studio across the street, because out of respect for her, a studio director and mentor and stuff like that. But yeah, so those are, oftentimes it's like we're so overwhelmed in our job, in our lives, in our mission, in our jobs, in our studios, we forget about these bigger picture things, which is again why we like to help people come out to that 10,000 foot view. And then sometimes we have to be in the weeds. Like Carol said, we got to get that one thing solved. So we have to hone in, and like with this client in mind, it's like with the whole web, okay, we got to hone in and figure out, we got to get in the weeds and get some of these funnels built and that and blah, 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 blah. But we wouldn't have known that if we hadn't zoomed out. We just assumed that the ads weren't working. No, the ads were working and getting the people to come to the website. What wasn't happening is we were directing them to this. That's the thing. The thing is the thing, not the ad. The ad was doing its job. It's just, we didn't have the hook strong enough for them to take that next action. And if we hadn't zoomed out, we wouldn't know that. And now that we've zoomed out, we're putting a strategy in place, and then we're going to go back in the weeds and get the things built. And then we can, a couple months from now, we can zoom back out and see how that's working. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
Sounds really good. Yeah.
I know. What do you think? Comment below. Should you raise your prices? Yes. Should you do it regularly? Yes.
Terry's giving you the answers.
Do you agree with me? Disagree with me?
You agree? Yes. No.
Yes, of course you do. When do you do it? You know, that's kind of like, when do you do it? We always like to think the beginning of the year, but maybe in our industry, the beginning of the year is not the time to do it because it is our busy season. So like maybe you do it in the spring, early spring. Maybe you do it in the fall or the summer. You know, just the thing is, if you do it regularly, it just becomes less of an issue.
Mhm.
It doesn't become a thing.
Yeah.
A thing doesn't have to be a thing unless you make a thing.
It's all in how it's presented too.
Yeah.
Right.
And it can ebb and flow too. Maybe not quite like the grocery stores. I mean, how is it? I guess maybe in June I was paying, I think $2.99 for the little avocados at Trader Joe's. They have the teeny avocados that are perfect for a single person. They're one, and I just paid $4.99 yesterday. But I did read that avocado, there's a whole thing with like avocados, something with avocados. So anyway, I don't know, I digress. But yes, so pricing is not static. It can be fluid. It should be fluid.
Just have a strategy behind it.
Strategy behind it, yeah.
Yeah.
And raise your drop-in.
Totally.
Raise your drop-in. Take it up $2. I challenge everybody who's listening, take your drop-in up $2 and see what happens. I bet you nothing. I bet you it's not even going to be blink an eye.
Right.
Okay, friend.
Right.
Anything fun for you on your agenda this weekend?
Oh, we're painting my son's room. He wants a redo, so we're doing a little bit of refreshing there. What about you?
What color?
It's like a light blue. It's really nice. It's gonna look real clean and nice. I'm excited. Although he's 13 and a half and his growth chart was, on the wall marked. And he's like, "Can we take that down?" And I was like, "Sure. Okay. Yeah." And then he's like, "It's going to be painted over, right? We won't see those marks anymore." I'm like, "No, we won't see those marks anymore."
I think you should leave them there.
It's already gone. Yeah. So it's, he's growing up. I got a picture. Yeah, definitely. He had already really, I don't know. He's almost as tall as I am now.
I would
So
say probably after like that age, they're not going to want to stand against the wall anymore.
no, he doesn't. So it is what it is. He's growing up. So
Growing up. All right.
yeah.
Now I'm just going to do some yard work. I did last weekend. I did the Muddy Princess, which was super fun.
Those pictures were amazing.
I don't post them to see. Yes, last
Yeah.
weekend it's called Muddy Princess. It's a kind of like a Tough Mudder or a Spartan race. It's an obstacle course and you get muddy. And it's for women only. It's called the Muddy Princess. I was wearing a tutu. And next year I think I'll have to have a tiara. There were quite a few women there with tiaras. And you get really muddy. And it's 5K, about 18 obstacles. It was super fun. It's more about collaboration and teamwork than it is about times and like some of the other ones are. And in fact, there were 2 women there. I wish I had a picture of them. They had to be, of course, it's so hard to tell ages these days. I would guess at least mid to late 70s minimum. And they were both there, tiaras, tutus, tie-dye shirts, and they both had like, you know, the hiking sticks. I have no idea how many obstacles they were actually able to do, because you always had the option to walk around an obstacle. But they were full there and full princess and full mud. I'm like, I
Oh,
want to be that when I'm that age.
love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super fun. So I did that last weekend. This weekend's a little less.
Yeah.
But well, thank you for being part of the YC. If you have any questions, comments, please post below. As always, the coaches are always here to help and support you, whether or not you are on a one-on-one coaching client or not. You can always book a call with any of us. Please, if you want help, that's what the YC is for. Post your questions in there. And we still do have some spots left for the summit. So if you really want to get immersed in the full YC experience and you really want to get your plans dialed in for 2025, check it out, sign up. I think we have like one spot left on site, and then we have the off-site option available as well. Salilita, if you've not been there before, is super cool community. We're going to be staying right near downtown, right in downtown, like a 5-minute walk to the beach. It's going to be super cool. So yeah, you want to have the best year ever. I had a client with the one we were talking about earlier, who's been to every summit since it started, including the virtual one during the time that shall not be named. She just had her best month ever in July. In July. And every month, every year,
significant growth.
except for the year that shall not be named. But even then, she bounced back really quickly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it does work. Yeah, it does. So sign up, come check it out, have fun. We work hard, work hard, play hard, work hard, play hard. And I've been sending Carol songs to include on our party boat. Are you impressed with some of the songs I've sent you?
I knew you were on the pulse, Terry.
I may be a boomer, but I know who Shabuzi is. In fact, talk about the ultimate earworm.
Yeah, it really is.
It gets in your brain. It is like,
yep.
Yes, I can.
I know.
But yes, so it's going to be, yes, we work hard. Yes, we're going to get down. We will get in the weeds on stuff. We will be up here. We will be down the weeds. We'll be somewhere in between. There will be tears, because every year there are some tears.
I was going to say, you're going to laugh, you're going to cry.
You're going to cry, and you're going to have a heck of a good time.
The best time.
It is the best time.
Yeah.
And the nice thing too, we hear about, a lot of my clients say, in addition to all the support they get, and just in terms of getting their strategies and tactics and goals and everything organized for the coming year, one of the things almost all my clients say to me is the camaraderie with fellow studio owners in real life. Yeah. It's hanging out with people and talking to people that are in the same industry, that understand our business, and we can be inspirationals and uplift and support all of our community, and getting ideas and collaborating and sharing and making friends, right? And people that you can check in with throughout the year, right? That have your back. So it's that networking part of it that just, I think, is just so invaluable too. You can't put it's like MasterCard commercials of old. That's priceless. Oh, in fact, it could be summit expense, $2,000. Airfare to Salilita, $500. Now let's make it $800. Hanging out with the most awesome group of yogapreneurs in the world.
Mara needs to put that on the Instagram right now. Make it an ad.
All right, YC, thank you so much for hanging out. Carol, as always, lovely to hang out and chat with you.
Same.
And go do some yoga, post any thoughts, comments, questions below. We're here to help and support you, and, really lift you up. Really lift. I've been thinking a lot about that, being of service. That's what we're here for. We're here to help you guys impact your communities. And we need that. Really need that, particularly right now in this country. So we're here to help you, help your communities. All right. Be real.